U.S. versus Sean Combs, day 20, afternoon update. I'm doing my update right here at the courthouse because we ended a little early, but I have to just right off the bat tell you about a very hostile moment with Jane and Teny Geragos, and it was pretty wild. I mean, there were gasps from the jury and there were gasps in the gallery, and it stemmed from a text exchange between Diddy and Jane. And Jane was upset because Diddy had been texting her about, she thought he was texting her because he missed her and he was bringing up two of the escorts that they had hotel sessions with. And then she sees a social media post of Diddy and a girl that he's with, spending quality time with. And I guess he also bought this girl a Chanel bag and she posted it. And Teny's reading the text message that Jane sent him, and it's something along the lines about you just want to use me for the hotel stuff while you're spending quality time, and you got her a Chanel bag, LOL, this shit's crazy, all this stuff. And Teny's like, so I mean, you didn't get a Chanel bag? And Jane goes, no, I only got trauma. And she said, but you got a Bottega bag, because she had testified that he bought her a Bottega bag. And she said, but you got a Bottega bag and a Van Cleef. How much is a Bottega bag? And Jane says, how much is my body? And then at one point before that, and I skipped over this, but at one point before that, Teny said, what is a Bottega bag? And she said, you probably have one. That's what Jane said. And so after this, and she talked about the price, and she's like, how much? And Jane said a Bottega bag is $2,000, and then she's like, how much is a Chanel bag? And she's like, I don't know. And right before that, the judge kind of scolded Jane to just answer the questions. And then Jane was like, can we take a break? And then when we got back from the break, Jane actually apologized, and she just said, I apologize. And also, when we got back from the break, the judge told the jury that we were going to end early, and one of the jurors goes, yay. But okay, so essentially the cross this afternoon, I actually was very excited to leave, because I would say 90% of the afternoon was spent on explicit text messages. And when I say explicit, I mean, I'm an adult, I can handle it. These were very explicit, and Jane had to read most of them. So, and I think that was to sort of show that she would text Diddy that she was having fantasies about certain escorts, and she would kind of explain herself and say, yeah, well, I was kind of placating, etc. But nevertheless, we did hear about texts that she sent, saying that these escorts turned her on and she was thinking about them, etc., etc. At another point, Teny kind of brought up, you said you hadn't really done anything in the 3 years that you were with Diddy, and then she kind of brought up, but you had your dress line business, you also had a swimsuit business, you got to live in this beautiful house, kind of saying, your apartment before was X many square feet and now this house is double, you can raise your child in this. And she even brought up the fact that her dress line business was profitable. So she's like, in 3 years, you didn't really do nothing, you did do stuff. And Jane kind of said, well, it's here nor there, but I feel like I could have done a lot more, etc. Let me see what else. There was also just text messages between Jane and Diddy where she says, I wish you were here so we could play our videos, meaning the videos they recorded in the different hotel rooms. And then she showed us 2 instances of text messages where Diddy essentially says to Jane, and we saw kind of the same thing with Cassie, we don't have to do any more of these hotel nights, or debauchery they called it. It can be just us. And okay, so then we saw this one text thread, again, more dirty text, but Jane tells Diddy that she feels sexiest when she's intoxicated off of wine. And Diddy responds, oh, I didn't know that. And they're kind of talking about hotel nights and what makes her feel the sexiest. And he says, I didn't know that. You don't have to do Molly. And he also says something like, we don't have to get crazy for the rest of the year. And Jane says something like, it's okay with me, meaning I don't mind necessarily getting crazy, that's fine. And Diddy says, what do you mean? And Jane testified that she took that whole thing as like an angry undertone when he said we don't have to go crazy for a year, almost kind of like a test. And that's my words, not hers, but that's how I kind of translated this. And Jane says, after he says, what do you mean? She said, I love that we have this freedom with one another. And Diddy says, you know, you don't think I can do it, meaning not have a hotel night. And she says, I just know that there will be debauchery before the end of the year. I don't mind it. I just want some romance time. And Diddy says, I'm going to make you beg for debauchery. And then she gives like a laughing face and says, you know, okay, let's try it, but I love it all with you. And then Diddy texts back, I love the times that it's just me and you. And then again, we ended with just more text messages about hotel nights. And that was when she kind of said, I want him to play this video. And yeah, overall, it was just a day. It was an afternoon as well. So tomorrow, again, I mentioned there will be a short day. So I'll probably just do one update in the afternoon. But yeah, I think, yeah, that was pretty much it for the afternoon. All right, guys.